Today, Nigel Farage, leader of the UK Independence Party, said, quote, "The EU is failing. The EU is dying. I hope we knock the first brick out of the wall." And today, Italy, France, Denmark, and Holland all called for referendums on their EU membership. Is this the beginning of the end for the European Union?
Well, let's step back a second. Remember that there are two different elements here. One is the economic, to which we've already alluded on. There's also the political, and while they're aligned, they're not the same. What has EU membership come to mean in the past year? Amongst other things, it has come to mean being forced to accept migrants from the Near East, some of whom may well be terrorists. It has meant rapes in Cologne on New Year's that the police were ordered by the responsible minister to try to cover up. I mean, that's the face of the EU that is most hitting people on the local level. But even that, as in America, there is, more than I think than any other time in my lifetime, a realization on the part of the governed that those who do the governing are totally unlike them and totally separated from them. That would not be so bad if we did not live in a system that pretends to be democratic. You know, if you live in an authoritarian system where you're the ruler and you say, guess what, I'm in charge, and we'll do as I say, and if you don't like it, well, pop goes the weasel. Well, okay, we may plot to overthrow you, may even succeed one day, we get very, very upset, but there's no illusion there. It's not like we're going to be seriously disappointed that our views don't really count for anything with you. And of course, contrariwise, you know that if you want to stay employed and not dead or on your way out of the country, you've got to somehow keep our manner of living semi-livable. In the system that is developed in the West, the elites pretend to govern at the will of the people, and the people pretend to be equal to their masters. But the problem is that's a fantasy. People believe in it, but it's a fantasy. And what often happens, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is that when people become aware of it, that we're brought up on this myth, they immediately start shrieking, getting upset, and sure there's an evil conspiracy of one-worlders or lizard people or Freemasons and Illuminati or whatever it may be, who have taken away their power. They haven't taken it away. You always have the rulers and the ruled, and the majority are ruled, and the minority rule. That's the way it is in every society, always been that way. But when a modern, raised on the democratic myth, discovers this, it gets him really overwrought, really upset. And this is what's happening. As the common man realizes his true standing in the eyes of his masters, he gets pissed off, really pissed off. And fortunately or otherwise, he does have means of expressing himself short of revolution, including the ballot box. Normally, as I've said, it gets manipulated. If things don't go the right way, they can be quashed in the courts. You can keep on throwing referenda until you get what you want. All that can be done. But every now and then, the people do speak to some degree. Now, today, the problem is that we have never had an elite so divorced from reality as we do now. And we have never had a general population so resentful at their lack of power. They've been brought up to believe that they count for something, and they've realized they count for nothing. And that is a very upsetting realization. It wouldn't be so bad, as I say, if either the rulership were more savvy, more interested in their people, or if the people were more aware of the way things really stood. But we have sort of a perfect storm. And that it's going on in every country in Europe. It's going on here. In Europe, it's exacerbated by the terrorists. It's exacerbated by the way the economy has gone. It's exacerbated by all kinds of things. In our country, it's not quite as bad because we don't really, though of course we've had the thing in Riverside, the thing in Orlando and so forth, but we have not really seen terror on this, except for 9/11, on the scale of what Europe has gone through. But nevertheless, it's the same resentment. I mean, that was why it was so interesting to see Mr. Trump in Scotland jumping up and down over this result. Because he sees what I pointed out, I don't mind saying, in our last session, is the vaguely analogous nature of the Trump and the Brexit campaigns. And when I say this, understand, I don't mean to say either that both attract a coalition of evil racists who, haters and bigots, or biggers and hateds, or whatever they are, the bad guys, or contrary-wise, that they're all freedom-loving seekers of truth and wisdom. That's not my point.
Right.
But they are analogous in the sense that they both appeal to the same resentment on the part of the ruled against their rulers. Now, whether or not voter Brexit is going to do anything to really relieve that stress and strain, I don't know. I would hope that the people who take office in the wake of it are a little more attuned. I would hope that in Europe it would cause the European rulership to take a second look at what really concerns the people they govern. How can you be so moronically blind not to see that there's a problem with your rape rate, I can say this word, rape rate, going up dramatically? What kind of an idiot doesn't quite get that people aren't going to, oh, well, of course someone who lives in a gated compound has bodyguards. You're right. He may not notice, or she if she's Frau Merkel. But that is what has to be addressed. If this, I hate the phrase, but if this acts as a wake-up call to the people who matter in Europe, it'll be a good thing. If they try not to punish Britain, but to work with them, that may be a very good thing indeed. And of course the other thing is that the pound is going to be a lot more competitive for the next week or two.
Right.
So you never know, British industry may really surprise us. So there you are.
Okay. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed listening to Charles, please remember to subscribe to the Tumblr House channel on YouTube. Thank you for watching.
Take care.